Hello, welcome. I am just letting people in. If you're watching on the replay, this is a live class, so I'm running it live. You're very welcome whether you are here live or watching on the replay. I'm so delighted you're here. We're just going to give it a couple of minutes to let folks arrive. If you want to have your cameras on, that is fine. You can turn your cameras off. It will be recorded and shared with my audience across the World Wide Web. I'll just say that as a disclaimer. So if you are more comfortable having your camera off, that is up to you. I've pinned my video just so you know, and then you can make the decision. So yeah, I'll just give it a couple of minutes, let some folks in who are just finding the link. I accidentally told people it was on Thursday. It's not, it's today, it's now. So I'm hoping people read that email and opened it. Anyone who wanted to come live. It's delightful to see some of you tuning in. I know some of you will be new to me and my spaces, and there'll be some people who are part of my membership and have been part of my ecosystem for a while. So just to say everybody is welcome, and it's so lovely to have a mix of different people that want to hear from me in this class. So if you have a notebook and pen, I like to use big pieces of paper in workshops like this, but if you have a notebook and pen, that's gorgeous. If you've got post-it notes and a big piece of paper and you like to work in that way, that's cool too. You can say hello to each other in the chat. You can drop in whereabouts you are joining us from. You can tell us where your main online home is. We would love to see who is here. So do feel free to network and share with the other participants that are coming live if you're here live, recognizing some names here. Which is always nice. Okay. Right, I'll just give it another minute and then we will get started because otherwise I'll be distracted letting people in. I know you can set it to let people in automatically on Zoom, but it always gives me a bit of a shock and I always stumble over whether I'm pressing record first or how I'm doing all that. So I do it this way around. But everybody is welcome. Good. Okay. I'll get into my flow and then if I'm pausing, it's just to let people in so you know. So hello, if you're new to my space, my name is Claire Venus and I'm an engagement consultant and mentor. I absolutely love Substack. People call me a Substack expert. I'm happy to wear that hat, but I came to Substack because it was a place for me to express my authentic voice and to practice writing long form. And it's morphed into lots of other things. So I host a membership on Substack called Sparkle on Substack, which I'll show you and let you see how that all works. I also host a newsletter on Substack. So my newsletter has an online home. I designed this class to help you get clarity about your online ecosystem, your content creation ecosystem, and your business ecosystem. So we're going to talk about the business elements of being online. So you might be a business owner or you might just be interested in how being online can contribute towards your business or a business that you might start. It might be just the theory side that you're interested in. It's absolutely fine. We're going to cover it all. I feel like as a millennial, an elder millennial, I have experienced the wonderful side of being part of online communities, being scared by online communities, being part of something and changing my mind, liking some spaces, not liking other. But I feel like I've had a whole load of emotions when it comes to being in online spaces, whether that's on social media or whether spaces that I've been invited into. I feel like the energy that we transmute when we set up a space, I'm a real space holder, but when we set up a space is really, really important. So, in terms of me and my values, creativity and community will always be at the forefront. I think it's really, really important. And you have to work even harder when it's online because people can read into things the wrong way. So the first question really in the workshop is to really ask you guys if you think that you already have an online home. So the main place that people can find you, or if you feel like you're split across a couple of places. So instinctively, when I ask you that question, do you have an online home? Where is it? Is it your website? Is it your Instagram? Is it your Substack? If you're already au fait with the platform, where is your online home? Where is the main place that you spend time? Where's the space that you want people to gather? If you can answer that question and let me know in the chat, that would be gorgeous. I'm just going to quit my emails because there's this really annoying email that keeps cropping up and I don't want it to. It won't send. And I said, try later. And it keeps being like, try now, Claire. I'm like, no, I'm teaching now. Go away, emails. Okay, I'm just going to have a read about what you guys are all saying. Split. I feel split. Okay, split. Has been Instagram, but I'm cutting back on Meta apps and putting the energy into Substack on my website. Thanks, Annie. Used to be big on Instagram, now on Substack and feeling a bit torn, lost. Okay. this is what I was expecting. So the whole reason that I wanted to do this workshop is when I was doing research for the next piece of the puzzle to help people to arrive and master Substack, this was the missing piece that people didn't really know or were unsure about where that online home was. And I can say wholeheartedly that Substack very quickly became my online home and I ditched everything else. So I had a level of special interest in Substack that was insatiable, and that enabled me to build the platform that I wanted to build for my Substack membership when I launched it. So for me, it was about really understanding how people were feeling as they were coming to the platform, trying to help people feel welcome and connected in the posts community that I was setting up. And then as Substack rolled out the other community elements, welcoming people in there. And as I said, I now have a newsletter home on Substack and I have my membership as well. That said, as a business owner, it was really important for me not to neglect my website. Now, I haven't met a business owner that doesn't preface on my website with an apology, because it always seems to be a big piece of work that we need to get round to. And it's almost easier to keep people running alongside us on social media or on a platform like Substack than it is to go, right, let's take a bird's eye view. What is my website doing for the World Wide Web? So I really think that it's important for us to just balance out. If we're split, we just tell ourselves that's okay and that's fine. It's no problem. We can be split, but also give ourselves the permission slip to say, are we doing enough in terms of repurposing what we write, really thinking about it, welcoming our community in, really thinking about gathering email addresses. And I really want to drill into some of those things today. Next question for you guys. If you are on social media, on on the socials, where do you spend most time on social media? So we've seen the rise of other types of social media, and even really only the last year or so. So we've seen Instagram threads, we've seen Twitter take a nosedive, we've seen some people still really love Facebook groups, so people still have Facebook accounts just so they can access certain groups that they like. So whereabouts are you? Do you have a presence on social media? Let me know all the places, or if it's easier, just give me the number of places that you think that you are still regularly showing up. So within the last 30 days, where are you showing up? So a point for Instagram, a point for Instagram threads, a point for if you've popped in over on LinkedIn. That's already 3. Are we getting more than 3? Like, what's it looking like? I'll have a little look what you guys are saying. Okay, so Julia's feeling the pull to start using socials. Kathy's saying Instagram and Facebook. Christine's saying Instagram. I don't like the video platforms and I don't love Reels. Joe says, I have the fear that most people are on Instagram and I'm losing traction by not being there might be unfounded. Getting off Meta, except for groups on Facebook, hoping to switch to YouTube. Blue Sky, since Twitter went out of the way of the Titanic. I have Instagram as well, but it's more personal. LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. 3, 5. Okay. So like between 3 and 5 social media places. When you're showing up to those places, do you feel like you have a clear purpose as to why you're going there? Like, are you going there for pleasure? Are you going there to connect? Are you going to advertise your business? Like, what are you doing there? What are you going on there to do? Just write it down. You don't have to tell me, but if you have a clear purpose for each of those socials, see if you can work out what's going on for you on those places. Sometimes it's a blend. So I would say I create mostly on Substack, and then I also hang out there for pleasure. So I love reading people's articles. I listen to podcasts through there. So there's a blend, but it's probably weighted towards, I would say 85 to 90% creation, and then a small percent odd, okay, I'm going to do some reading and stuff like that. So you might have a sense of what that is. Lauren's saying LinkedIn, Insta, and Substack, but I've not been consistent on any recently. Okay. So sometimes we set up a profile for ourselves or for our business just to claim that handle on a social media, because we've seen over the years it's frustrating if we can't get the handle that we want. And I think that's great. There's nothing wrong with that. Like, I definitely did that. I went over to Blue Sky. I was like, yeah, I'll put my handle on here. I'll have a presence. I'll be open-minded. But being open-minded across social media just takes capacity. So I think that sometimes we're pulled because somebody says something really positive. Like, I had a meeting with a one-to-one client about Substack, and she was like, look at my Blue Sky, look how it's popping off. And it's like, of course that's exciting. If there's opportunity there, we got to go and suss it out. We've got to go and see, haven't we? But ultimately, social media is to get you in front of different sets of eyes that you wouldn't ordinarily be seeing in your online home, and ideally getting their email address inside your online home. So if you've got A mailing list sign up on your website. If you've got a Substack, then it is capturing people's email addresses. So I haven't met a business owner online or even a product-based business owner that doesn't have a mailing list. Like in 2025, if you don't have a mailing list and you're relying on social media, that's just a really hard gig. So it's not impossible. And especially like at influencer level, it's totally possible for that to be true and for you to just feed the social media algorithms consistently and get people buy-in from you and understanding your brand. But most savvy business owners that I have met, learned from, worked with, have an email list and have had one for a while. Sometimes there's a bit of a shame around that email list because it's quite hard to build. So I'll take you back a little bit and let you know about why I started building an email list on Substack and where I was with it all. So I was posting on Instagram. I felt when I went on there that I could never uphold these perfectionist standards that I had for myself. And I had to really break that down and I didn't really understand where that was coming from. A lot of it I learned as I was going through doing the healing work was because I didn't know who I was talking to. I knew that I was talking to a lot of people, but I didn't know specifically who my message was for. So if you write that question down for yourself, who is my message for? Because these social media platforms have us feeling like we're shouting into the void. But if your message is for a certain percentage of that audience that have ended up following you, you know, from your hairdresser to like the mums at the school gate to like your husband's best mate, like it's very difficult to know, but who is my message for? And that's why I've never been driven for a long time around vanity metrics, because that sum that we would do, oh, we've got this many followers, therefore we should have this many likes and this much engagement. Not really, not if you're just trying to get in front of people with the main message that you have. So heading onto social media and trying to work out, okay, like who is this message for and who needs to find it? There was a lot of filtering that I needed to do. And as I was working through that process, I lost my own voice in that. Maybe you relate to that. You know, it's very hard to stay consistent to our own voice when we're hearing everybody else's voices because it's so noisy. So consuming constantly other people's content, like having a little scroll, doing whatever you're doing, is really detrimental to your creativity and you understanding what it is that you want to do. So when you're saying to people on social media, I've got this mailing list, come on over. The main thing that I found is that it was growing really, really slowly. So by the time I moved it into Substack in 2022, it was at 350 people, which I'd gathered from talking about it on Instagram, sharing it in my stories, asking people. And that was a real reframe for me. So there was about 3,000 followers there on that Instagram account, and there was 350 on the mailing list. And it was like, that's who I'm talking to. These are the people that have signed up to receive more depth in the words, and you know, they might follow me on Instagram again or whatever else. But it was a real reframe, and I just wanted to gift you that around your presence on social media. Sometimes putting stuff out there and trying things out is just getting you closer to your voice and your message and your understanding of who you're talking to in the worldwide space. So that's the first thing. When I moved my newsletter into Substack, I'd been experimenting on Substack for about 6 months. So I'd had a time where there was nobody that I knew. There was nobody that I'd told. I just had this glorious time of me being able to write long form, and it was just writing at that point, and find connections. And the email addresses were ticking up, you know, so there was new people giving me their email addresses because that's how Substack works, to receive the words that I was writing. It wasn't a newsletter. It was sort of a blog. It was sort of personal essays. It was a real hybrid experiment, and I loved it. I loved that time because I literally had no expectation on myself. I wasn't trying to sell anything. I was just there as a person in the world expressing myself. So if you are not yet on Substack, or if you're just starting out with Substack, please give yourself that gift, you know, because as soon as you feel there's eyes on you, or as soon as you feel those metrics ticking up, then you're going to be like, oh, well, I had, you know, this many subscribers last week and I've only had this many this week. You know, you're going to start comparing yourself to your old self. So give yourself that space and time. When I moved my newsletter into Substack, my newsletter had an identity. It was called Notes from the Sea. I live here on the Northumberland Coast. I'm very inspired by nature and my environment, and it is such a permission slip to go to the beach once a month and really feel into and think about what I want to write. You know, not everybody has access to that, and I want to bring some of that beach, some photos from that beach and some medicine from that beach, if you like, to everybody. That's what I want to do. So that had its own identity, and that was really beautiful. And it felt like, okay, so instead of being hidden in MailChimp, my newsletter now has a home and it exists on Substack. My Substack was called the same as my business is, which is Creatively Conscious. So when we're thinking through the tiers of brands of how we show up and who we are, it's really worth thinking about where everything fits together in terms of people understanding you, your business, a product, a brand, like an identity of something within that. And I think the names of things can be really, really important. So have a think about how you've named yourself currently, what your website URL is, what your Substack URL is, if you've got one, what your Instagram handle is. How does this all fit together? If somebody was finding your spaces for the first time, would it be relevant and exciting to them to sign up to your Substack and or mailing list, to have a look on your website and have a little sort of wander around there, to follow you on Instagram, to see if you were on one of the other platforms? You know, I'll just use Instagram as a social media example because it's easy. Will it make sense to people within that? Does that, or is there any sort of things that could be confusing to people? I mean, it is just confusing. You know, it takes a while to build up brand awareness and that sort of thing, but I just wanted to float that question in. So when you have a mailing list that is off Substack, you go into the back office of your mailing list provider, you write the email, you send it out into the world, and then it exists in that person's inbox. Yes, they could share it on socials and you could share it on socials, you could share snippets of it and stuff, but it's essentially, it kind of dies the day that you've sent it out. When you share a newsletter on Substack, you have the option to publish to your Substack website. When you publish to your Substack website, you build up this lovely little archive. So if we head over to mine, Creatively Conscious, then you'll see the archive of notes from the sea. So people can go back through, and they sometimes do. And also for you, you can see how your writing's moved on and the topics that you've talked about. If you work seasonally like I do, that can be quite helpful to kind of go back and think, okay, like what was I leaning into this time last year? So that's the main difference. You still see open rates on Substack, so you can track your open rates. You can also have something called 30-day views that you check in on. So unlike the newsletter that would go out and just be in someone's email inbox, Substack, because it's web-based, pushes your content out further. So as people share it, either within the Substack ecosystem or wider than that, you'll clock up more monthly views. So I noticed a trend with this as I moved my newsletter into Substack, and I was seeing that I was having views double the amount of subscribers that I had in my newsletter. And that was feeding the Substack ecosystem. And that felt really exciting because I feel like it can be the opposite on social media. So, you know, the website of ours is one thing where people are kind of looking for something specific and they might move on, but capturing them and enabling them to go back through the archive or find us and kind of stumble through other things online on our Substack website just felt really, really exciting to me. That said, Substack as a newsletter provider, let's just call it that for now. It's a bit of a sort of a hybrid. They've given themselves various different taglines over the years. I think it's currently a new home for culture. But as a mailing list provider, so going in, writing your email and sending it out, it has some capacity blocks around how you might normally see the back office of mailing list providers. So you can't tag people, for example, into an audience segment. You can see what people have opened, so you can go back through into the profile of that reader, and you can see what they've opened and their little journey that they've gone on. But there's certain things that it won't do, and it won't plug into other services. If you've got, you know, Shopify plugged into your website, for example, it's not going to plug in and tell them that they've got an abandoned cart. It's not that type of mailing list service provider. It's kind of its own unique thing. So one of the questions that I get asked a lot from business owners that come to work with me on how they can be really congruent with how they show up in their online spaces is, why would I have a Substack and a mailing list? Like, what is the benefit of having those two spaces? And I wanted to cover that today because it's been a real light bulb for me. And I don't think it's that tricky. I don't think it's that difficult as a business owner to kind of understand and know this. Now, it might be unique to my business, but it's not, given the people that I've worked with, I don't think it is. I think this is how business owners are kind of wrapping their heads around using it. So I have a mailing list provider that isn't MailChimp, but is attached to my course and webinars. So like this one today, the way that you found out about this webinar happening was me emailing you through something called Podia, which I use to host my online courses and webinars. I use the email, what am I trying to say? The email, Mm, it's gone. The word's disappeared off. I've been at the dentist today. So, when you've just like gone from one thing to another. So the email bank, let's call it a bank. So the email bank of people in Podia is like my CRM, so customer relationship manager. So that is very, very different to me to the way that I use Substack. So all the people who are in my Podia email system, so it could be anything for you. It could be Clavico, it could be MailChimp, could be Flowdesk. They are people within a customer relationship manager. So there's some people there who have bought my online courses and can message me directly in there about specific modules. There's some people like you guys today who have signed up for a product who can come to a class and my software delivers the link to them 10 minutes before. And I love that. So I can see where somebody has joined, come to a free class, decided what they want to do next within my website system, or, I might recognize their name and they come and join my membership. So that is really, really helpful for me to understand. Within that system, if you've ever used an online course platform like Teachable, Podia, Kajabi are all examples of those, you'll be able to see per person, where they are in the world, how much money they spend with you, what emails they open. Like it's a whole big thing. It's like a whole big data nest of what we need. So as business owners, it feels really important to have that. If we have a slightly different type of business, so for example, if we're not working online, or even if we are, there's loads that we can do within Substack without having that sort of system as well. And the signups can be quite tricky between spaces as well. So do ask me any questions in the chat if there's anything popping up for you as I'm talking through this stuff. But moving into Substack and having people grow understanding of me, what I offer, my brand, coming into the community in one online home feels really nourishing and beautiful to me because I am such a space holder and community builder. I absolutely love doing it there. I also need to, as a business owner, understand how my business is working. So it makes sense for me to have the two spaces, Substack and my web platform Podia. So those two things together. I think that the way that some people have started trying to work out, is it worth me starting a Substack, is do they want to use it as more of a blog platform? So does it replace what they were doing on their website blog? Does it replace using a WordPress blog? Is the tech better? And the answer will probably be yes, than the current thing that I was using as a blog. And then you get the email addresses as well. So there are so many different ways to use Substack. You can use it as a podcast hosting space. You can use it to grow your newsletter. You can use it to write long form. That could be personal essays, like I mentioned, or blog posts. You can use it to host paywalled content. So there are so many different ways with it that it's really about more deeply understanding where you want to spend your time and what's going to be more conducive to your business right now to grow. When we think about how we use what it is that we've produced in the world. So let's take an example from today. So I went live on Substack. You can do that in the Substack app. So I went live with a friend and colleague, Tony from Shelf Help Club. So Tony is one of my diamond members on Substack. So she gets like the top level of support from me. So she can have strategic support. She can have launch support. She can ask questions basically on anything she's working on Substack. And one of the things that she said was that she wanted to get more au fait with live content on Substack and whether she was going to use it within our business ecosystem or not. So I said, let's jump on a live. I'd love to talk to you about your podcast. So it's serving Tony's audience because she wants to try a live and she's going to be sharing with them more about who she is in the world and more about the podcast that she produced that was like topping the charts at the end of last year. And it's serving me because I want to share with more people how to podcast on Substack, the difference between lives and podcasting and also how my expertise can help them with that. So I have all sorts of free products, but I also have my membership where I can hold people along a process and create classes specifically for their needs. So that was really, really helpful to do. Once we've spent the hour being live on Substack together, we've got the video file that can be shared across the World Wide Web. So we could do anything that we wanted with that. We could email it out to our Substack subscribers. We can pull it through directly from Substack to YouTube. We can get the clips and we can actually highlight certain pieces of text to then make a video clip directly in Substack. So if you're really into your video editing, it'll probably seem quite basic, but I like it because it's fast. So I could take a snippet of what Tony said and my response to Tony and share it as an Instagram reel, put it on my Instagram stories, which means that I am showing up there for people, starting a bit of a conversation in stories about whatever the topic was that we covered. And I really just like anything that streamlines my content creation process, because I think lots of us feel overwhelmed and stuck as to how to feed the social media platforms, how to cultivate good relationships on there, how to make sure that people are hearing about all of the different offers that we've got. So that's just one example of how I would think about a piece of I'm going to call it content because it is content. So it was a beautiful live. It wasn't a podcast, but it was podcast-y. It'll sit on my Substack website within the membership so people can have a little look at that and they can watch the replay, and then it'll pull through to YouTube. So if people are searching Substack and podcasty stuff, it might come up there. Going into the places that we show up online and what's what for us. I know some of us were saying, okay, so I've got this platform and that platform, and I'm interested in that platform. I wanted to ask you guys, are any of you using YouTube and Pinterest at the moment? Just put a yes in the chat if you are. Let's wait and see. Lisa's saying yes. Kathy, yes, yes, yes. Okay. Just starting to use both. Martina, brilliant. Okay. So 2023, when I decided to go all in on Substack. So this was April 2023. I was going all in on Substack. I was super, super excited about what that was going to mean for me and my business. I decided to also keep an eye on Pinterest and YouTube, specifically because these places are search engines. So they're not social media, they're search engines, which means people go onto them to search for certain things. And I thought, if I'm going all in on Substack, I'm really, really curious about if there's anything that I can be producing that fits with those platforms and that I can repurpose, so that if people are searching for Substack education on YouTube, hopefully my video might come up. If people are on Pinterest and asking, where's the best place for a blog, they might get to one of my articles about starting a blog on Substack. So I did some of that thinking, and I worked out within the time that I had how many times I could show up on those places in a month. And that was driving traffic to both my Substack and my website, because those two places were my online home. So it was really helpful for me to know that and to do a strategy that made sense with those two platforms, knowing that it was going to be evergreen and it was going to build up over time. So looking at my YouTube yesterday, I did a recording of a class for my mastermind, and I was looking at my YouTube and I was describing how some of those videos have built views over time. That just doesn't happen on social media. So for my money, if we are working out, okay, like we don't want to be everywhere all of the time, but how are we more strategic? Working out what those search terms are for your business, for your Substack, for the topics that you talk about can be really, really important. I've got some friends where we met at Cake Club. Actually, we used to meet up, and there was always be a theme. It was really lovely. And the organizer's now on Substack. She's called Lynn Hill. Anyway, we used to meet up at Clandestine Cake Club, and I've got a friend who was blogging at the time. And one time we were talking about it over tea and cake. It was really lovely, a long time ago. And she said that the recipe for, I think it was like Jamaican rum cake or Jamaican black cake or something. It was some sort of Jamaican black cake. um, was her most viewed by like 3 or 4 times. And I just absolutely loved that. It was people searching specifically for that. And her blog post on that was coming up, and she had some beautiful photos of what she'd baked and all that sort of stuff. And when we think about that, when we think about everybody searching for specific things online, it can feel really overwhelming if we feel like we're in a sea of voices. But if we've got something really clear within our messaging and something quite specific where we can talk directly to somebody, it can be really helpful to go, actually, yeah, like that is something I'm really passionate about talking about. I talk about it with my community. How can I make a video, or how can I make a pin or a set of pins that are going to talk to that problem that someone's searching for? So I just wanted to drop that in. I thought that might be helpful for you to just reframe those spaces. Um, what's happened with my Pinterest now, just for full transparency, is that I have a VA that makes pins for me. So I think she makes like 3 to 5 a month. So I pay her for an hour a month. And I also pull through my Instagram feed into Pinterest. So it's interesting, isn't it? Because some people would teach, oh, well, what you create for Pinterest needs to be really different. But my online business manager says just get it all in there. So my views have gone up from like 4,000 views a month to like 34,000 views a month on Pinterest slowly, since I decided to start doing something consistently on that platform. So I've never been one for like just going all in everywhere. I feel like that's just a recipe for burnout, but choosing a strategic way to drip feed content that is going to bring people into your ecosystem can be really helpful. So social media versus search engines. Pinterest and YouTube, they're your search engines. You need to be thinking about your search terms. You need to be drilling into what your clients are asking you about, what your readers love to read, your most popular posts, and then you need to be breaking that down and creating pins and or videos on that sort of stuff. When you create a video like I did today with Tony inside of Substack, you have the opportunity to rework what the title is of that video to get more clicks. So YouTube is really about the powerful thumbnail and the title. So I'm doing some A/B testing at the moment. I think I've got like 800 subscribers on YouTube, so it's not a lot, but it has built up massively since I started giving it attention. There was only about 20 before. And what I find is if I let a software create the thumbnail for me and suggest the title, more clicks happen. And I would love for that not to be true. I'd love for me to just be the creative brain, but it's just they are all the time, these softwares. So I use vidIQ. They're all the time looking at what is working on these platforms and then spitting it back out and making suggestions. So it's AI pushed for sure. Like AI is pushing this agenda, but also as creatives, we can meet it where it's at. So some things it suggests are just not my vibe at all and not what I would want to put out in the world. But sometimes with a little bit of a tweak, I'm like, okay, that title's all right, actually. And if people are genuinely searching for that and they find my video, they're going to know whether they vibe with that or not. So things like that can be really helpful. So there's vidIQ and there's also TubeBuddy. You can pick between the two. vidIQ had the best results and it's what my online business manager wanted me to use. So I was cool with that. And I'm just sharing that with you in case that's super helpful. That said, you can work out a lot by yourself, like, studying things, watching YouTube videos, buying courses if they appeal to you and stuff. There's loads of benefit in you walking this walk quite slowly with yourself and giving yourself space and time, because you know what it gets like. We start off well and then we like abandon everything and just we're like, oh right, we'll just go back to doing the one thing then. So slowly and sustainably, I think, is the way with anything in terms of your online presence. Okay, so I'm going to weave into audio and then we're going to have some time for questions, and I'm going to share my Substack so you can have a little bit more of a look of how I set up my Substacks as well. So with video and audio, I think that it's taken me ages to feel comfortable with video. I think that there is work to do on our mindset, on our sense of self in the world, on how confident we feel, on who our audience is, and getting really comfortable with who we're actually speaking to. I think there's all of that work to do before we feel super comfortable with video. I also know that practice makes it feel easier on our nervous system. So once we've done something, we feel accomplished, we feel proud, somebody might say a nice comment. It's not for everyone, but it is possible. And I know that for me, podcasting with video from the off was what I wanted to do. Like I wanted to reach people in their living rooms. My friend will text and be like, I've got you on the telly. Like, I love that. I'm like, cool, that's ace. So there's a level of confidence that I had to build up and just be cool with it. With the audio side, obviously with podcast audio, like you can edit it, you can take your time, you record it, you might re-record it. You can do all of that stuff if you want to, if you feel you've got time. I never felt like I had time. I always felt like with the limited childcare that I just had to get stuff out and celebrate the imperfectly perfect way that it arrived in the world. And it's been fine. It's been great. And I think that there's a bit in leaning into feeling safe and feeling comfortable and practicing and that whole thing. But there's also something to be said about just keeping on showing up. And I'm going to do a big show up challenge over on Sparkle on Substack. I think March time. I was going to maybe start in mid-Feb. We'll see. We'll do a poll. But yeah, I think just showing up and the practice of showing up and understanding how we feel in all of that, it is still relatively new. We're only talking 5 years since we've all been using the internet in this way. It's not very long, and it hasn't given us long enough to kind of really catch up in a way that we feel safe and grounded. It can feel out of our comfort zone. If you have a piece of audio that you're comfortable with, if you've talked to camera and you just want to use the audio, it can be really helpful to put that in a transcription service and just have a look at what has come out in free flow. So if I'm sitting and writing a post, of course, I'm going to go back and edit and I'm going to move things around. And that's the beauty of being able to write. It takes a long time. If I talk for 20 minutes and get everything out that it is that I want to say and put that in a transcript service, I can see really clearly what I feel and think and how I want to kind of teach and educate, and then pull it into a post or make it into an Instagram caption. So even if it's just for your own practice, I think audio is magic. I think being able to just talk and it's like you are talking to yourself for sure, but just to talk and then to see what is pulled out, I just think it's brilliant. I did it when my daughter was very young. I remember pushing her pram around our village and just talking to Otter at the time. So Otter AI I was using. And I was trying to write a blog post. Like I really just wanted to get this idea. I can't remember what it was. I really just wanted to get this idea out into the world. But I just started talking about what I was seeing as I was walking. And then it went into sort of this bit more of a sort of a lyrical, poetic piece. So it was multi-layered. And that one act of just talking while I was out and about actually gave me loads of ideas for how I wanted to show up in both long form and shorter form on social media. So top tip, don't be afraid to start a Zoom and record with yourself. It's really useful, I promise. So on the transcription, I use something called Cast Magic, and I put all my podcasts into that. It's really helpful to organize them, and it also creates social media suggested content for you. So it knows the tone for LinkedIn. So if you go to my LinkedIn now, you'll see that I have done a shout out for a podcast that's coming out at the weekend with Emma Simpson. Cast Magic wrote that for me and I edited it. So I'm not there at my laptop going, oh, what do I want to say about this? Right, let's listen to it again. No, I haven't got time for that. So what I have to do is go, okay, we'll put this into Cast Magic. We'll see what Cast Magic spits out. It has the right tone for LinkedIn. I don't spend very much time there, so I don't feel like I really know the tone. I don't know the algorithm. But Cast Magic has some more clue than I do. So it writes it and then I put that out there and it's enough. It's not perfect, but it's done and it's enough. And it flags up that I've got a podcast coming out in the world on Sunday, which I love. With all of the way that we show up on social media, there's loads of different ways that I've done it over the years. The main thing that I teach is to choose two online spaces to be on. So you will know instinctively what feels good to you. So mine is usually Substack and Instagram, although not always. And I'll hit a tipping point where I feel like I've consumed too much of everybody else's content and ideas, and I just delete them both. And I just have some time with my own thoughts, do some writing in my journal, go for walks. So I think there's a real balance with how we consume these spaces and how we're bombarded. But I think two is more than enough for anybody, and you can weave others in a little bit here and there. Like I just did an example with LinkedIn. I probably pop up on LinkedIn once a month, twice a month. It's fine. It works. People click things. I've still got a presence there. I'm just not there every day doing the thing that the people on LinkedIn do because I don't understand it really, to be honest. That's not my main platform, but some people love it. So Okay, good. I'm going to answer some of your questions, but I'm going to head over to share my screen on Substack, just to give you a little bit more insight into how magic it is to use Substack as your online home and just to get you thinking about that a little bit more. Obviously, I'm pitching this class to some people that have not really used it, some people that are new, and some people that are already using it. So please put your questions in and I will answer them before we finish. But for now, I'll just go ahead and share my screen so you can get a sense of how I've built up these spaces. Okay. Hopefully you can see that okay. Just give me a thumbs up if you can. Just looking for thumbs. Yay, good. Thank you. So this is Creatively Conscious. Like I said, Creatively Conscious is the name of my business. So I am Claire Venus and I run a business called Creatively Conscious. That's really helpful for me because when I am stepping into my business, even though me and my business echo the same values, it's work, right? So I'm showing up to the page to do work in service usually. Definitely, there's some self-indulgence goes on. Like if I want to write something that's on my heart, like I'll let myself do that. But usually the work is in service. So I have this Substack designed so that it looks a little bit like a magazine, a website. It's a bit of a blend of both. People can scroll down. There are different sections that people can click into. There's notes from the sea that I mentioned. So you'll see there's always some sort of inspiring photo from my life, whether that's the beach or the snow that we had recently in January and the sunset or sunrise. And then I have some guest posts that I sometimes publish as well. So for me, the whole identity of this place is that it is calm, it's coming to people from the sea, it's a little slice of my life, it's a little bit of understanding of how I run my business and how it all fits together. It's had a lot of thought over the years in terms of what it is and how people receive it. So with Substack, people can choose to read just in the app or they can have the emails in that email inbox. So it's really up to you personally how you want to receive words. I don't receive any emails in my email inbox because my email is for work and I don't want to miss anything. And I would because I'm subscribed to a lot of Substacks. It's my job. So, there's a lot there. So for me, the app-based experience is somebody coming to that piece or me reading somebody else's piece and I'm transported to wherever they wrote it from. So whether that's them inviting me round to their kitchen table or whether they're on a retreat somewhere or whether they want to take me into that class, I just feel we get that opportunity when we use the Substack app. I'm a big fan of it. So that's that one. I have a podcast here, but it's not really a podcast. So it's a set of 11-minute voice notes. I'll click into it and show you. Look, slightly deranged there. Great screenshot. Thanks, Substack. But basically, this is a series of 11-minute voice notes that I started as a way to capture something that I wanted to share with the world when I didn't really have time to write long posts. So when I had my toddler at home and my husband was really sick, I was like, how can I show up in a way that is still feeding and fueling my creativity and keeping me connected to an audience? So that's why those are there like that, but it's not a podcast. That's just what Substack call it. I've also got a welcome and a contents page so that if people end up landing here, they understand what they've landed into and what it is. So a little bit about me and then a little bit of the contents of what people can find. So there are a few resources because of the way that I ran my business previously. I always had workshops as part of that. So there are a few resources that people might want to click into and use, but I don't offer any new resources. It's primarily newsletter focused now and blog focused. Oh, sorry. I could hear somebody in the background. I don't know whether someone needs to go on mute. Let me just double check. I don't think so. Okay, it's fine. So that's that one. As I mentioned, the archive is a little Substack feature, and I really, really advise leaving that on because it can be really helpful if we feel we've seen something in notes or somewhere else and we go to someone's page and we're looking for it. And if someone's done a really lovely design of their Substack homepage, but you can't find the most recent article, it happens all the time. And I just think, leave it on, like let people go back through your archive. People are interested. And also you can reshare your archive, wherever you like. There's so much that ends up building up there after you've been publishing for a little while. Um, so this is Sparkle on Substack. This is my membership, my Substack education space. So it's very, very different to the way that I have Creatively Conscious set up. So there are live calls. There's a chat function where my members can all chat to each other and ask each other questions. There are replays. There's a special section for Diamond members for the people that want more support. And then there's a section around making money on Substack because that's popular. There's a growth laboratory that I started this year. And then here are all my live chats, which I was just telling you about before. So I'm saving those so people can come back and find them and just put in a thumbnail that's my logo on there. Across the navigation bar here, there's so many different ways that you can take people into your Substack universe. So you might be taking them off platform. So you could have a link to your website here. You could have a link to buy your book. You could have a link to take one of your courses. You could have a link to your Instagram if that's what you want. Like you can take people in any number of directions. I don't know whether it's gone off now because I've changed my format. Yeah, it has. You can have something called site links as well on your homepage on a certain format. Mine have dropped off, but mine were like buy my book. Just mention my book, How to Build a World-Class Substack. So people could directly go out and buy my book from a link there. There was also a link to my Instagram, and then there was a couple of links that were like specific in terms of calls to action for people who were beginners and people who were more advanced in their journey. But it's dropped off now, but you can add that in. So you've got your navigation bar here. And because I have a range of different people that come to me for Substack advice. So I have the beginners that want to understand how to set up their Substacks. I've got the people that want to build something that they're really proud of, but it doesn't fit any business aspirations. And then I've got the business owners that want to make it fit and are short on time, haven't got long, just want to get everything right straight away and have it generating leads and making money for them essentially. So there's different types of people. So it's been really helpful for me to have other drop downs that people can kind of navigate their way through and decide, okay, like which of Claire's products is right for me. So this is almost like a website now, but it's my Sparkle on Substack brand. So my website is Creatively Conscious because that's my company, but this has so much detail now that it's almost like its own website, if that makes sense. The SEO with Substack posts is very good. So I get the Google alerts. I've got Google navigation plugged in and it's been really great. So if you are torn between creating on your own website and creating on a Substack, the advice that I've had, and there is a class in the portal on this, is that it's all working and it's working the way that we would expect. SEO changes all the time, but for my money, it's fine. I still update my website regularly as well. I haven't abandoned it, but what I'm doing on Substack is enabling Google searches or whichever search engine people use to pull through results. So that's good. What else did I want to show you on here? I think that's it really. I mean, I'm just going to go to your questions, but I just wanted to give you that sense of what is possible in terms of 2 different publications. On my dashboard here, we can kind of go through all of the different ones. I'm plugged into some here for a client, so these aren't all mine, but you'll see, I'll take you into the back office of this one. This one's a client Substack and it's just used as a weekly newsletter. So there isn't a ton of comments and community. It's just mainly used to push out email. And it was moved here because MailChimp were going to start charging the client. So I'm plugged into that one. And that's been really interesting to see the growth. It's still being talked about off platform and all that sort of gorgeous stuff. What's really nice on Substack as well, I'll show you really quick. Before we move on to questions, is that you can share directly onto the other platforms. So if you're new to Substack, Notes is their inbuilt social media. It's a bit like a Twitter feed, but it's kinder and nicer and there's more art on there, but that's what that is. So you can share those directly. And then you get these share images as well. So if you go on my Instagram, you'll see some of these share images because for me, it's important not to be sucked into creating in too many different places and to make sure that I'm being in service of my members and my community first off. So I use these and they're fine. I don't use just them. I do use some photographs and carousels and I do the odd reel and stuff, but I do like these and it's just a bit of a taster as to what you can find within somebody's Substack ecosystem. Okay, let me stop sharing my screen. The reason I haven't gone tons into all of the different whys and wherefores with Substack is that I have free classes available on Substack. So if you were here for the first time and you're getting your head around Substack, there are classes that I have that you can watch that'll give you more insight into how to use it. So this one was really just about your ecosystem and making sure that you had something that was working for you, trying to remove some blocks through all of the overwhelm that comes up for us. Okay, let's get to some of these questions. And if you do have to go, the replay will be available to all of you that signed up. I'll share it later tonight. Um, okay. Okay, so there's some help going on in the chat here. This is lovely. So Joe's saying, how do you learn what your audience is searching for? So this is really interesting for me because it has been a labor of love since probably about 2021, I want to say, when I worked with a marketing coach. They were like, you need to understand your ideal client. Like, you need to understand where they shop, like what their passions are, what they invest in, where they go on holiday, who they're friends with, like what they talk about, what they see at the cinema. And that question just felt wholly overwhelming. So I had to reverse engineer it. And this might just be because I'm neurodivergent. I don't know. But for me, I had to start with people that I already knew who liked my work. So I started with three people. Two that I knew in real life, one that lives close to me, that felt important, and the other one that I knew online but hadn't met. And so when I was building up my ideal client avatar, so it's a bit of marketing work here, but also good for like your ideal reader or the person that you think you're speaking to, however you want to go with that. It was really helpful for me to understand that they are very unique and beautiful people in their own right, but there is similarity between them. So it was pulling on what is the similarity between them? What is it in my messaging that keeps them coming back? Why were they the first people to pay for my Substack? So this was the level of enthusiasm I was looking for, right? So I was looking for the people who they didn't need much of a permission slip to come and work with me. They didn't need a permission slip to come and take a class. They were like, if you're putting it on, I'm there. So that felt really comfortable to me because I wasn't trying to sell to them. I was just saying, I'm doing this. And then they came. So that was really helpful. So I always talk about this, but you basically draw a little gingerbread person. That's a very wobbly one. But you write what they feel in the middle and what they want on the outside. So feel in the middle and want on the outside. So it's good to do this for yourself. This is a nice self-development exercise anyway. So if you do it for yourself, that should be easy to get you into it. And then try and picture a person in your life right now that likes your work. Go with that person. Then pick another, then pick another. So you might say, for me, like I might say, well, I feel a bit tired because I had to get up with my daughter last night. What I want is to feel less tired and more soothed. Okay, well, how am I going to feel more soothed? Well, there's something really beautiful on Substack that I want to read, or I'm going to put a podcast on in the car on the school run because it's going to make me feel nourished and like I've taken some time for myself. So you can really quickly get into like, what is this person about? Like, what makes them tick? And why is my work going to feel important to them? What's going to make them rush to make a cup of tea at lunchtime and sit down with my article? Like, there's some really gorgeous prompts that you can ask around that stuff. And Joe, it's actually topical because it's in the mastermind. So I'm just telling Joe that because there are some new classes that dropped yesterday. But yes, write in where you are coming from a place of authentic self, but also that act of service and that meeting people where they're at and then bringing them into your world as well. So Lisa's saying, I recently did a thing with my podcast co-host where we interviewed each other. It was brilliant. It's now 2 episodes. I love that. Yeah. So when I was doing the promo around my book, this was so insightful. Like being interviewed, honestly, until people asked me the questions, like I didn't know I felt that way. I didn't know I thought those things. It was like those questions were bringing more out of me than I had self-awareness around. So I think it's a really nice thing to do. Great tip, Lisa. Thank you. Julia's saying, question, I find it confusing to have Substack newsletters published like blog posts. To me, newsletters are summaries and announcements, whereas blog posts are finished pages that stand on their own. When I see Substack newsletters published as blog pages, it's confusing to understand what's relevant and what's outdated. Thoughts on how to navigate this? Yes. So For me, a newsletter needs an identity, like a name. So, like mine is Notes from the Sea and then the month, right? So, that's a newsletter to me. Like, if I was to do like a little roundup, it would be topical. We saw a lot of gift guides flying around before Christmas on Substack. Like, that content is relevant, and then it's not. Like, people aren't going to be searching into the archive of that. But some of the pieces that we write, and we talk about this in the book, my co-author Russell calls them cornerstone pieces of content. So, for example, the timeline of me growing my Substack, that isn't going to go out of date. It's going to definitely expire. There'll be more story to tell, but people starting out on Substack are going to be interested in that. So it's an evergreen piece of content. It's always going to be interesting. Anything that you write that is reflective of the past is going to be interesting long term. So it's probably just about getting some post-its and working out like the type of thing that you like to write. And, is that newspapery, as in like it's tomorrow's fish and chip wrapper, or is it something that people might find in time? I'm doing a challenge at the moment called 12 Chapters Club, which is totally free, an active service to my community. And it's about writing one chapter a month in 2025 towards a book or an ebook, because that was partly how I was able to write a book in a really short timeline last year. And I really wanted to just share that with folks, because the nature of the writing that I see on Substack is what's really high quality for a start, but also it feels like it needs more space and time around it. So if it was turned into a book, like I'd definitely be first in the queue to buy it. So I hope that answers your question. I think it's personal, but there's loads to think on in there. So Blythe's saying, if you share courses, would the website be the best place to house it and sell it rather than Substack? I'm still confused how to separate the two. It really depends, Blythe, on what you've set up for your paid subscribers. So on Substack, we can set up a paywall or a system where people can pay us every month and also annually. So it's like a membership essentially, but Substack don't call it that. I call it my membership, and lots of people do now, like we've owned it ourselves. But if you set up your paid subscriptions to be quite low ticket, so by low ticket, I would think, under $10 a month. And if your annual is like in that same sort of range, so usually we see prices like $5, $6 a month, and then maybe like 50 and 60 a year. That's relatively low ticket. So in terms of your funnel and where people might head after that, after they've enjoyed your paid for content, they might want to go into like a course platform with you, a live or a pre-recorded course platform to get more depth. That said, it's not always how it has to work. People can set up their Substacks to be any price that they want. So I could set up a new Substack and say, okay, like I'm hosting my Adventures in Audio, Adventures in Audio and Video podcasting course on Substack now. Like all you've got to do is purchase the Substack, you get access for a year, and then there's all the course. Like for sure, I could do that. It's got the capacity to do that. For me, because of the CRM thing that I explained earlier on, all of my courses are off platform. And honestly, even now, like knowing what I know now about Substack, I wouldn't change it. I'd already invested in Podia, you see, when I came to Substack, so I already had it. But I still think in the here and now, there's mileage in bringing people into your ecosystem off platform, because Substack is its own ecosystem, so when people are making choices about paid subscriptions, they can sometimes feel the weight of supporting too many people. So, if they want to pay to read a writer's words, and then they also want to pay to be part of a couple of communities, that's already like 3 sets of Substack subscriptions. It is all coming, and it shows them that. So I think moving people into a new place where it's like, oh no, this is a course for my self-development, just reframes it a bit. That said, if it feels easy to use the tech, it's free on Substack. They take 10% of everything that we earn. So if that feels fair and easy for you to do, it's really easy to make it work on Substack and to publish course modules on Substack for sure. I would be looking at putting them within the founding member tier rather than the monthly and the annual paid tier. So my founding member tier is called Diamond Membership. So people have to pay for a year up front. They can't do a payment plan on that. So that's Substack's rules, not mine. But it means that people are coming in and going, okay, like it's a year's access pass. I get to work with Claire for a year. Here's all the resources. This is when we're doing hot seats. This is when she's got experts coming in. Like, this is me now. Like, I'm committing to my Substack for a year and I'm excited to work with her. So, whether that feels right for your course or whether you would want to give them lifetime access, lifetime, but that's just what people say. But I think it is like longer term access because sometimes people want to refer back to things, they're further down their journey or whatever, and they want to go back into a module. I know that I do that with courses. So, yeah, maybe it's a little bit about thinking about who the person is and what you've already got on offer to them. I hope that helps. Um, okay, Julia says, sorry, I have a local offline biz with its own email list. Right now, I'm publishing in Substack to my online people and to my email list for offline people. This feels like a lot of work. Any thoughts on how to navigate this? Yes, that is a lot of work. Is it a different business? I'm not clear from your question. Um, Offline right now, publishing. I mean, I would say there's probably more of a way to combine them because you are the conduit of all of that. So whatever you're orchestrating in all of the places, it is you. So maybe, I was talking about me being Claire Venus and plugging into Creatively Conscious, the company, and then writing the newsletter under that kind of digital magazine banner of Creatively Conscious that's called Notes from the Sea. Maybe there's just a few ways to kind of filter down what your brand is and how you're inviting people in. Let me know if you want to ask a part B to that. So Nos says, question, creating audio narration on our posts on Substack, is it helpful? People like that? Yes, for sure. So if you include audio, personal audio in your Substack will grow 2.5 times faster. That statistic is from Substack and it's quite outdated, so it's probably more than that. We still have the monopoly on the media tab. Like there is not many people publishing in that media tab. I'm signed up to 170 Substacks, I think it is. When I go on there, what's in the media tab is already like days old. That's not fresh content coming in. So I think it's really powerful to include audio. It's lovely to read your words. That might be a natural fit or it might feel a bit strange, but you can definitely try it out. But yeah, video, audio are beautiful things to do on Substack. Joe's sharing that she's had a lot of positive feedback on audio narration. That's really good. Yeah, that we do have the AI voices. So there's a range of AI voices that we can choose for our Substack. And I mean, it's fine, isn't it? Like some of them are quite nice to listen to. It's not as nice as our voice, but it's definitely nice. So that's good. Right, let me just have a drink because I'm getting through your questions, but I definitely need a drink. I think it's just my experience at the dentist, to be honest. I'm fine, but it's a lot. Okay, well, good. I spared you the drinking noises. I'm back. Um, right. Who is next? Good. I love that you're all chatting to each other. Thank you for doing that. Rachel says, I've loved playing with Substack as a beginner, but I'm finding it hard to know how to build and create community. Do you have any thoughts on how I could journey to that place? At the moment, I'm just kind of processing my thoughts and journey. Yeah. So, top tips for building community and connection on Substack. Really thinking about people wanting to subscribe to your Substack. In the time that I've been on there, Substack have brought in their social media feed and have brought in the capacity for us to follow people rather than subscribe to them. So it's like a whole thing. So I have like 10,000 more followers than I do subscribers, and it feels counterintuitive because it's really hard to get in front of people on Notes. So like there's a whole push-pull going on. Ultimately, creating beautiful work that you're really proud of is front and center always, because that is building towards your archive. The thing that I still think is massively important, and it's what I definitely did as I was growing my publications, and it still works beautifully for me now, is joining other people's paid for communities. The reason why I advise joining other people's paid for communities is because there is much like-minded community there. So you find people that will just have a natural affinity and crossover to your work. So the communities that I was originally part of, some of them offered Zoom calls. So there was the opportunity to be on a Zoom screen with other people, which was really nice. And we would share our Substack handle in that. And I would meet people. I would sometimes get clients through that as well. That was really nice. So I was part of Farah Store's community. I know she's doing less video now, but those were some really nice sessions to show up to. And she's head of UK partnerships at Substack, UK and European partnerships now. And then Susie Walker's Hartley Brighton group. So Susie hosts masterclasses. Like one masterclass is worth the annual fee to me. Like I think it's about £70 or something for Susie's Substack per year. But she hosts these masterclasses with people who are in the book publishing industry that are just really cool and really nice to be part of. So we go to those, or you can catch the replays. And she hosts writing groups twice a week. So every Tuesday and Thursday morning, we would show up, say what we're going to write on. We would spend 50 minutes writing, and then we would like check back in at the end. So that's been really nice as well. The communities that offer comment-based kind of connection as well can be really lovely, because if you've paid to be part of someone's community and you're really deep in their work and the different resources that they offer, the likelihood of you meeting somebody else that's really interested in that too is really high. And people, it's like an energetic thing, but people are just more open to chatting, feeling safe. You know, they're not chatting on the World Wide Web. They're like chatting in a private little Substack chat or in the comments of an article that's paywalled. So those things are really nice. I also really liked doing collaboration. So when I went all in to grow on Substack and I really wanted to spend lots of time there, I did one collaboration per month on my own Substack and one on somebody else's. So that's quite a lot of work, but it got me to meet new people and to chat and to kind of build connection. There is something called recommendations within Substack, which is basically where you recommend another Substack, and it pushes the algorithm within Substack to understand the type of stuff that you want to see. So it's really worth spending some time recommending some other Substacks within the recommendations tab. I've had over 7,000 subscribers from recommendations alone for Sparkle on Substack. And I think about 2,000 on Creatively Conscious. So it's really beautiful work, really lovely to do. You can go into notes, you can have a little chit chat in there. But I guess what I would say is it is a filter of like all the publishing on Substack. So you're going to get the American politics, you're going to get the people that have come over from LinkedIn and want to like boss you about and tell you how to do things. Like there's just a whole load of stuff. So you've got to spend some time curating your feed and going through the tabs and working out what it is that you want to connect to, and training the algorithm a bit. I think that's true of any social media, but I think it's particularly heavy at the moment. So really worth thinking about that. In terms of creating community in your own space, I think it just naturally happens, you know. So I don't want to be all Disney about this, but I just think it is energetic. Like the more you invite people in, the more you take this work seriously, the more you're passionate about talking about it on social media. You might set up a couple of Pinterest pins, you know, whatever you're doing is going to be bringing people in. You seeing it as an online home is kind of the first step of inviting people in. There's a couple of exercises I've got over on Sparkle that is really just prompting you about what is it that you're inviting people to. So for me on Creatively Conscious, I'm like, oh, well, it's a 24/7 beach party, but it's the type where you can like do what you feel. You can swim in the sea, you can have a cup of tea over here, you can go to a journaling class. So like a festival, really, you can choose. So that was really helpful, just journaling to like, what is the identity of this space that I'm setting up? If your Substack was a room, what would it be? So yeah, hope that helps. Good, 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 good. Okay. Lisa's saying, I've yet to paywall or have paid subscribers only posts. I'm unsure how to go about this. Do I, don't I? How, what posts? Maybe you can't answer this, but it's about I've been humming and hawing. Yes, I can answer it, and I would love to answer it. So when you're looking at putting a wall, and it is a wall, in front of your words, you're automatically going to close those words off to the wider community. So the way Substack works now is we can read any of the posts without subscribing. So they changed it so we don't have to put our email addresses in. We can read them like an online blog. So you're going to stop people from being able to read those words. So it's really interesting to think about how that makes you feel, because sometimes that can be a massive permission slip to just let rip and really say what it is that's on your heart and your mind and what you want to share with the world. Other times it makes you feel a bit sad because those words are really important and you want more people to see them. So as you're thinking about where to position that paywall, it can be really helpful to understand, okay, how am I going to feel if only 3 people read this part? How am I going to feel if 300 read this? And just like get your head around that bit of it. You can go back through your archive and like have a think about this retrospectively as well. You can also set it automated on Substack so your work goes behind the paywall after a certain amount of time. And I've experimented with this before. So I did it 2 weeks. So people had 2 weeks to read it and then it goes behind the paywall. So obviously that's only relevant to new readers because the present readers, if they read an email, would have had it in their email so they can read it again anytime they want. However they organize that is fine. But I do think that is an interesting one, an interesting model. We're seeing it less and less, but it is there, it is possible. The other thing about that is that you can send posts just to your paid audience and just to your free audience. So you can kind of mix it up that way. So in your mind, if it's always a paid for post, how does that change your writing? How does it change how you come to the keyboard? And you only really know if you start experimenting with that. So I definitely did more vulnerable writing on Creatively Conscious behind the paywall. Like that just felt super comfortable to do. And I did um a little season of writing around income and stuff like that. So for me, I didn't want that on the World Wide Web. Like I needed that within a small, intimate audience. That said, you can turn on free trials. Like so people have got the option that if they really want to read, then they can hop in for free and stay if they want or hop out again. So there's loads of ways with your words to be able to invite people in. It depends what type of reader as well. So you'll have certain people who just really want to pay for the readers that they love. So people like Clover Stroud, obviously, she comes to Substack. She's been pouring her heart into Instagram and into books for years. Like she brings a crowd with her who love our work and who are going to pay straight away. So I worked with Clover on her launch strategy to come to Substack. And that was, it was just obvious like, okay, well, people are going to pay. And then if they don't want to, she was still really passionate about sharing bits of it over on Instagram because she was really fond of that community. So sometimes it's more of a business decision, right? It's like some people are going to pay, some people aren't, and that's all fine. The average percentage of people that will pay within your Substack network for the whole of Substack is 5%. So they say anywhere between 1% and 5% is normal and then 10% is high. So when you know that, you can sort of start working out, okay, well, if it was 3%, if it was 4%, I've got a spreadsheet on Sparkle that is open access that you can have a look at and work out how much you could earn and what percentage Stripe fees and what percentage Substack fees and all the rest of it. But you can start to work out, okay, like, is this a small intimate group? And if it is, like, are we chatting on chat? Are we chatting in the comments? Or do I just want to keep writing for a while? There was some, and it's a bit outdated now, but I think it's interesting. There was some advice not to turn on paid until you reach 1,000 free readers because you'll have built up a momentum by that point, and then you've got some people to like sell your work into. But then Substack started saying turn it on from the beginning because then you'll get more used to how it all works, blah, 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 blah. So it's really down to you and your gut. But I definitely think an exercise of going back through your archive and working out how you would feel if you locked off any of those words would be helpful. Um, um, so Nasa saying how about having paid subscription but without walled posts just to support your work? Yeah, so people do that too. So that's known as like a Patreon model. So you would just be asking people for support. My husband runs this model. Be asking for people for support, but you don't paywall anything. So they can pay, but they're not going to get anything extra. I would say, given the landscape of Substack now, give them something extra as well. So even if you're not paywalling, put something in the paid subscriber welcome email that's like an ebook, access to a course, a meditation, something like give them something because it's just that nudge, like a nicer nudge to get them over and into your space. Um, okay, good. Okay, good. So I've run over by 10 minutes, so I should go because I don't want to keep you guys too long. But thank you for bringing your beautiful energy to this class. The last thing that I'm going to teach is this analogy that I thought of today. So I have another class. It's free. It's called the Reframe, and it's about us feeling safe to create online. I've been looking for one of these. It's an IKEA box file. So the frame is in front of the art. So I've not put the art in there yet, but I've got a plan for this. And it really made me think of you guys today. So I found it in a charity shop opposite the dentist's. And yeah, it really made me think of you guys because you need to build space between you and whatever it is that you're creating online. So I accidentally bought a couple of these from Homebase and they were called box frames. And I thought this is what they were going to be, but the glass was really close to the back frame. So I can't actually make space for the artwork that I was planning with those two frames. So they have to be used for something else in this period of time, as you're working through how all of the platforms feed together, where your online home is, how you show up to all of those places. I just think it's really nice to go, oh, there it all is, separate from you. And so that's what I talk about in the reframe. So if you do want access to that, I'll just make sure it's really obvious where to get access to that, because I think it just really helps you to feel really guarded and separate, but also very wholehearted when it's time to show up and do the work and be in service. And I've definitely learned some of those lessons the hard way. I think the fear of, not being understood or like the pleaser in you or somebody who's had negative comments, trolls and stuff like that can all feel really difficult. So I talk about that more in the workshop because I feel like it's helpful to share my experience so that you feel more wholehearted and more clear about how you're sharing your work on the big old internet. So I will end it there. But it's been absolutely beautiful to spend some time with you. If you need anything from me, you know where to find me. I am Creatively Conscious and Sparkle on Substack on Instagram. You'll find me on Instagram at creatively.conscious, or you can head over to my website and see all of the different things that I offer. Thanks, guys. I'll see you really soon. Take care.